Welcome.
Thank you.
So we've set the tone. Before we go into the conversation, maybe you just do the rounds and you introduce yourselves briefly.
Hi, I guess I'll go first. It was 2 years ago when I was on this stage, actually, last. It's wonderful to be back. My name's Jack Kreindler. I am a physician, a tech entrepreneur for the last 37 years, since the age of 13, believe it or not. Then did medical school and practiced as an extreme environments physician. So I study people at the very edge of human performance and what people are capable of, and what are the factors that help people survive and thrive in extreme environments. And combining that with my experience of maybe burning the candle at a few ends for many years, as well as being a junior doctor. A couple of years ago, we founded a program called Well Founded, which is a well-being and human performance program now in 15 countries and 3 continents, delivered to whole portfolios of VCs, for VCs, yeah.
Wonderful, thank you. Kadri?
I'm Kadri, and by background, I'm a clinical child psychologist. Did my PhD, did academic work, clinical work, but I don't want to get too much into that. I'm also a solo female founder in a company that is not VC-backed, so I can tell you a lot of fun stories about that.
And Marek?
My name is Marek. I'm an entrepreneur. I've been an entrepreneur as long as I remember. Last 20 years I've been in real estate. Last 13 years I've been in tech, and I've been through different crises, which has led me to also to holistic therapies and other psychological ventures.
Thank you. Marek was on our podcast episode when we did the live recording, so we know a little bit already about your story. I think what we want to do with this session, the title is The Real Cost of Entrepreneurship. So we want to talk a little bit about, on the one side, what were your experiences? And on the other side, talk a little bit what were the causes for your experiences, and this will also lead to who's actually responsible for that. So I talk to people now and say, when I was doing Startup Bootcamp, I didn't realize that I was part of the problem. And I think a lot of people in this wide, noisy ecosystem really struggle to acknowledge that they may contribute to the problem. Since we know your story, Marek, we'll start first with Kadri. So you throw into the room casually that you're a solo founder of a business that's been going for quite a while. Tell us a little bit about your ups and your downs. Or maybe not the ups, just focus on the downs.
Fair enough. I started Triumph Health already in 2016. So I've been around for a while without the VC money, right? So it's super uncertain journey, and you really have to be comfortable in chaos. For me, though, I have to say that over the years, I have never given up on the mission, because it's very, it's an impact startup as well, right, to work on children's mental health. And from the business perspective, I just know how to, because of my background, how to take care of myself, especially during the most difficult times, because then I need to deal with myself more than ever and not neglect myself, right? So it's what I think that the main thing what I would like to discuss actually or talk about is that there is often this perception that I'm too comfortable maybe from the growth perspective as a CEO, right? But I know that this is such a long-term game because when in the field of health tech, for example, from innovation to becoming a gold standard, it takes on average 17 years. So you can burn out a million times in this process if you don't take care of yourself. So I just know that I book my own VIP time more and more each time when it gets especially tough.
When you talk about it being tough, what does this mean? How do you experience the toughness?
Well, for me, I know the signs, what show me that I need to take better care of myself. And you mentioned all of those already. So well done on explaining everything that all the founders should look for. And for example, I think that sleep is the first thing that is showing us that something is going on, and then it's not wise to think that everyone is sleeping poorly and it will just go away. These are like real signs that we need to actually take care of. I'm really lousy with physical activity, as everyone can see probably as well. So this is something that I need to work on. I know that it's very helpful from that perspective that that you need to clear your mind and also make sure that that you have some physical activity in.
Thank you. Marek, maybe you can share a little bit what you shared with me yesterday on the podcast, especially the second time around, because Marek managed to go through the cycle twice. You were telling me that one of the side effects of what you were going through was you ended up divorcing from your wife.
Yes, my startup became kind of obsession to me, and I totally forgot other areas one point of time. So, when my partner started to complain about that I'm not paying too much attention to her, I was basically closing myself down and opened the laptop and went to another room and said that I need to work because I need to grow my company because I just need to do it. And State Guru was growing 70 to 100% per year first 8 years, and we had taken VC money on, and it was quite a lot of pressure to sustain the growth, which in the end led to some mistakes that we're still handling at the moment. And and one point my wife just said that that's it. She cannot take it anymore. I started also to abuse my health. I was starting to smoke weed too much and also to numb myself about the problems that came from the outside. And so fortunately we're back together. I've learned my lessons, and happy end happened. So far, so good.
Well, it's wonderful to hear that your story has a happy ending, but reality is that some of these things are irreversible, and I'm going to come to you, but because you mentioned the happy ending, 2 years ago, I was in a room full of female entrepreneurs talking about the subject, and one woman raised her hand and said, I'm going to share something with the room that I haven't never shared before. And she was the co-founder of a high-growth startup, which was growing really fast. And she said 2 years into the business, when the company was about 300 people, at the age of 34, her body went into premature menopause. So you can talk about getting back together with your wife, but when your body responds to the stresses in the environment in a way that it's just no longer possible to do something you thought was still available to you for a while, it's these things that nobody ever talks about. And this is why I'm really grateful that you both share, because people need to hear that. People need to hear that all the glamour and the glory out there is great, but what's the reality of this? Which leads me to you, Jack. Because you have the medical perspective, and you've built something that is working with people to help. So what was your experience of your mental health? Because you mentioned you were a founder yourself.
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm no different to many people. I think from a personal note, trying to build a startup at a time 25 years ago when there was absolutely no money for health tech for people that were still practicing medicine. Now it's all the rage. You're not really a real doctor unless you're doing a startup at the same time anymore.
Right.
But all of those pressures and those uncertainties, as well as being a junior doctor and working at times pretty regularly 120 hours a week, doing on-calls, being, worrying about investors and worrying about employees and so on. That is not the way to build a business. And it is just pure logic, and it's going to happen that you are going to deplete your mental and your physiological energy and end up in a very, very high-risk state if you don't do basics. And what is really interesting to me is that, in every other extreme sport or extreme occupation, be it military, be it polar exploration, be it elite sport of any kind, no one goes into those things like the Olympics or climbs the Eiger or goes to the South Pole without training, without basics. But it's like, for me, it felt like the First World War. It felt like I was given a $10 million gun and sent to the front line and said, go win the war. We would never do that in any other extreme environment. And yet until very recently, it wasn't really even a conversation. Until COVID, mental health was not a thing. So I would say I was very, very lucky in that I'm born with an extreme degree of resilience, which not a lot of other people are. That's probably a genetic or a physiological thing. But it's just not a surprise that that impact happens.
One of the things, as you might have noticed, we're really keen on is for people to learn to listen to the signals. So when you were going through this the first time round, how did you learn to go, if my body does X, I need to listen?
Me personally?
Yeah, let's start with you.
I'll tell you the biggest sign for me was when I was in the Whittington Hospital in Highgate, which you probably know because you live near there, right, in London, and I had to go into an operating theatre that wasn't being used to take a nap.
Right.
That's a pretty decent sign that you're not very good at listening to yourself, okay? But these are the kind of the basic tools which very ambitious, very driven people, they override the normal signals. It's what we do. We are born to beat the warning signs. And so learning what those warning signs are, whether they're physiological in terms of sleep, dropping off at the wheel, having angry conversations with people, only remembering, realizing that you're only spinning negative thoughts in your head. There's great work on sleep deprivation and the memory of only negative things versus positive things. Hearing that, being able to recognize, right, I'm lacking support, I'm lacking command and control of my own neurons, I'm lacking control of my environment, and it's running away with me. Pull back. And those are the basics which we don't get taught.
Thank you. Do you want to help? Do you want to share what you do to listen?
Well, it's really tough, right? Because I'm like all the founders are really obsessed on their journey, on their company, on the product and everything. So, like you said, overriding happens very, very clearly, and neglecting yourself is common thing for all the founders. But one thing is that everything comes at a cost. So you need to be aware of what you're allowing yourself to sacrifice in order to be a successful entrepreneur. And sometimes the easiest part from the well, not the easiest part, it's the most horrible part is that when we are neglecting our mental health and our physical health as well, due to everything that we're so passionate about, our families and social relationships in general. So just I have this set of behaviors that I evaluate for myself, and I know like when I'm in red or in green zone. So then when I'm in red, it's action time.
So there's like a dashboard in your head.
On paper. On physical paper, not anywhere online, but on physical paper over the years. Yeah.
Before I come to you, Marek, we met this wonderful woman who was experiencing suicidal ideation quite regularly. And she started having therapy. And at some point, she created a list. That's why I mentioned this. She had her own list of these are the signals that I see that I know if I don't pay attention, it will get worse. But the thing that she did that I found staggering is she shared this list with her housemates. So she said to the people she lives with, if you see me getting messier, if you see me not washing myself, you have permission to say something. And there is something about the permissions that I think are fascinating, because we often don't give permission to ourselves to say the difficult things, let alone to other people, and it requires a lot of courage. And that leads me a little bit to you, Marek, because yesterday we were talking about the second time when you decided no longer to be the CEO, I didn't realize that you actually didn't decide it yourself.
Actually, from inside, I already had felt quite some time that I didn't want to go to work, and I had lost the passion of this building this company. But at the same time, I kind of had received like a new identity of being a state guru, like the company name is State Guru. Even sometimes people call to the office and I'd like to talk to a state guru. Then I just joke, it's a company name. We don't have any state gurus here. But I felt that I had got an identity which was a little bit hard to release. That I'm not anymore like this person that I have made myself last 10 years. I've been speaking about my founder story all around the world in different conferences, and felt kind of a little bit like a superstar in a way. But fortunately, yes, one of my co-founders and angel investor, who has been actually my mentor from the beginning, candidly told me that, Marek, it's better for the company you step down. And actually, I had a COO who had became a co-CEO a couple of years before, so we had a nice transition. And they proposed that Michael would step as a CEO, and I would. They offered me actually the place for a chairman, which would give me a little bit space to then decide if I would like to stay a chairman or go leave the company at all. And it was 2 years ago, and I'm very happy that I didn't push, and I didn't. I kind of looked my ego from a side which wanted to kind of struggle and say that I'm actually better and I know the company inside out and so on. But at the same time, I realized that actually it's good for my health, it's good for the company, and I could support the company much better being the chairman role. So yeah, that was the situation.
I mean, I don't know a single entrepreneur who does this without ego. So for somebody outside to say, you know what, maybe you shouldn't continue doing what you're doing, maybe you should step aside from the business that you set up, I'm amazed that you could go, it's actually relief, and just look at yourself from the outside. That requires quite some skill.
Yeah.
Maybe we can talk a little bit about the things that you do nowadays to be better. So we've established that you all have your techniques, you all have a mechanism. And I'll show you one thing in my life to kick it off. Like yesterday, everybody went to the party. People started coming when I was leaving, because I realized that my social battery runs out really quickly. And in my old life, everybody thought I was the super extrovert. I was always at the parties. I was always on the drink and the booze and the food and whatever. But the pandemic really got me to recognize that I'm actually much more of an introvert than I thought I was. And being around lots of people and have all these conversations really wears me down really quickly. And I was going through this process of trying to apply this. Going, okay, I'm only going to go to one event, stay 1 hour, fine. But then last year, I listened to Brené Brown on a podcast talking about how she's got this thing with her husband, where they come home and they don't really know what energy levels they are. They used to fight because one wanted to talk and the other one didn't have the capacity. And then they started doing this thing when they need to talk to each other, they give each other the percentage of energy that they have. And that makes it easy, because if you're at 0 and your partner is at 80, then you know how to manage this somehow. So I shared this with my husband, who is not a big kind of, he thinks all this is woo-woo and wishy-washy. But he liked the idea. And then I had this moment after a big conference last year where I was so overwhelmed. I got home, my luggage was lost, I needed to travel again, and I was super stressed, and I was standing in a supermarket in London that I go to every Saturday, and I couldn't find the things that I wanted to buy. And my husband looks at me and grabs me by the shoulders and goes, looks like you're at 0% and I'm at 100, let's go home. And I just started crying. I'm a 56-year-old man standing in Waitrose in Canary Wharf in tears because somebody actually saw me and used language that worked for me. And now we do this as well. And it's a very simple thing that I apply to myself now. And I go, okay, now I feel like my energy is dropping, so I remove myself from a situation that's unhealthy for me. Just a little example how I deal with it, but I'll hand over to you guys. You're nodding, Jack.
I'm nodding. Yeah. You know, it's funny, when you have a team meeting in a hospital or in a medical environment, or in a military environment, the first thing that you ask, it's almost like bad practice if you don't ask, how is everyone? You know, it's giving that people the space. I'll give an interesting, maybe extreme example of coping. So January 23, we led the largest expedition studying hyper-endurance in the history of Antarctic exploration. We took 19 people skiing to the South Pole, looking at the difference between male and females and their physiology and psychology. And it turns out that, who do you think perform better in hyper-endurance environments, men or women? Women, yeah, but I bet you don't know why, and we're still working out, you know, what are the factors associated. But one of the key things, irrespective of people's physiology, biology, and you know, physical capabilities, was the human interaction part. We did psychometric study every single day throughout the entire polar expedition, and it turned out that the key factors for success were the ability to interact and ask those questions of each other and share load. Female physiology and probably neurophysiology lends itself more to communication and sharing than men, who seem to just, you know, compete with each other much more. I don't know, you know, we don't yet know what the exact reasons for that are, and it might only be that we were studying that in the extremes of, you know, polar exploration, but anecdotes all across the world seem to say that if you have the ability to communicate with each other and share what you're doing, how you're feeling, and the load. In polar exploration, it's literally taking 5 kilos and putting it on your sled. So it's literally like literally sharing load. But if you take that metaphorically, it's sharing load within your company. It's sharing load within your leadership, between your co-founders. So what we learn in these extreme environments seems, I hope, to be very applicable in the extreme environment of startup.
Thank you. This is really, really insightful. We've got another psychologist on the panel. So what's your take on this?
Well, I just wanted to share like my story, because as a, you know, it, like you said also in the intro, that it's very difficult to you know, your company identity and your own identity, these get merged. And when you are a solo female founder, then, you know, I am Triumph, right? So this was like what was very helpful for me was to understand that there is the business side, and there is more in me, because I didn't, for the first 5 years, it was just that, absolutely just everything related to business, and then I needed a change in environment. So actually, I live in the middle of a forest. So what works for me is that I live in the middle of the forest. Although my head is all the time in the clouds, my feet are very, very grounded. I grow my own food and chickens and everything. So I have this kind of very normal, simple life as well at the same time, and this is really helpful. I think that you're not on the clouds all the time, but can experience this real life as well. And also another thing is what happened. I'm also divorced because of very similar reasons, but with my partner now, we also make sure that we check in with each other. Although yes, times are very busy and we're very focused on the career part, but just, you know, how we're feeling and what we need. Like we have like very stupid system going on, but it's a daily thing, and it really helps with the relationship as well, that we cannot neglect or should not. I hope that nobody's doing that.
I'm not curious about the stupid system, but it's fine. It's okay. Marek, how about you? What are you doing?
I feel that I need now more time to myself than before. I love to go to my country house in a small island of Estonia, where is total tranquility. I just basically go to the hot tube, close my eyes, and get the ecstasy from this silence. And that's something. I've been always a sportsman. I used to be in a professional squash player. That's I'm a little bit missing actually. That adrenaline and the feeling that I got after hard tournaments. But sports has been also a very important part of my life, and meaningful conversations with deep conversations with people. I think this social part is very, very, very important, and I like to talk to people who have dropped their masks, and really authenticity is the new world for me that I really enjoy.
You have no idea that you've just given me the perfect segue for the next chapter, because you talk about authenticity. And I want to talk about venture capitalists. Because, do we have VCs in the room? Don't be shy. Okay, if you're not in the room, then we can bitch about you even more. I was having a conversation yesterday at the party about a person saying that she was told that she's too cute for a VC, an investor conversation. She needs to be different, but it was her personality. She was just a very joyful, naturally happy person. And we were having this conversation about when do you need to stop being authentic because the system expects it to be a certain way. And one of the things we realized by talking to a lot of founders is that the moment they raise VC money, this is where the real stresses start. Because the VC world works in a very templated environment, and it's certain ways of doing things, and people feel the need to comply with it. When we started trying to find VCs who wanted to talk to us about mental health 5 years ago, there were practically nobody. We had people who genuinely said to us, people I've known for years, said to me, I genuinely don't care if the founder fails, if that means the business fails, it's a portfolio game, and that's just what it is. And as you mentioned, Jack, COVID changed things, and now we see more and more investment firms acknowledging that they may have a role in this. I think that we're at a stage where they want to help. I don't think they're as far as saying we're actually part of the problem, but we can talk about this. And Jack, maybe this is an easy one to ask you because you actually work with VCs.
Correct.
So what was your experience?
Well, look, 2018 we came up with the idea of doing a compacted, very productized version of the bespoke stuff we do for health and performance in high-performing individuals for founders. And we asked 100 founders and 100 VCs, would they go for this? And the problem then was no one wanted to admit vulnerability. It just was, people would run for the hills if you said you had mental health issues or things like this. Now you don't join a startup unless the founder is publicly saying that you want, that they're going through stuff. It's totally changed. COVID also made the invincible, immortal beings of venture capitalists suddenly realize that even young people can die. Okay, so a lot changed, and in that process, I think a genuine shift has happened in the mindset of people who are investing. They are giving that gun to the World War I soldier and saying, here's a $10, $20, $30 million gun, go win a war. That mentality is changing. More and more people are realizing that the stochastic risk in their portfolio is very much down to this factor that we're talking about right now. Mental, physiological, neurophysiological, and kind of leadership collapse is avoidable. It's not completely preventable, but you can manage that risk. VCs are changing. Some, I would say, are greenwashing this and sort of saying, this is something that we just need to do to say, hey, we're a cool VC. But there is a very significant movement of genuine investors who are changing the way that they're looking after their most important asset.
It's really encouraging to hear, and I like you nodding, Marek. I just suddenly got a bunch of questions on my screen, and I won't be able to go through all of them because we're running out of time. But one of the themes that keeps coming up repeatedly is a question around microdosing, recreational drugs, psychedelics. Does anybody want to say something? I know maybe Marek, you mentioned something yesterday.
I think it's to use these consciously. I really believe that they can be helpful and open the awareness and reduce the stress and so on. I've done them also unconsciously. I did first time ayahuasca like 15 years ago. I've done it 3 times in total, and but there should be a reason to do it. There should be really a question, what you're asking, why you're doing, what answers you're looking for. Yeah, so I think it's good. It's good when you do it for conscious use. Yes.
Thank you. We have run out of time. Can I just take a moment to acknowledge one thing? We were worried we might not get enough people in the room, and there's people standing, which I think is amazing, and it is very encouraging. I love the fact that suddenly all these questions came up. I hope we managed to instill an element of where we are in the landscape. I think hearing the stories from you, hearing what you're doing to get better, also touching upon the things that we put in the introduction, which is figure out what's happening, talk to people, and don't try to boil the ocean. A small step can be the first step towards betterness. Thank you so much. This was wonderful. Thank you. Thanks, everyone.